What is up, and welcome back to Talking Nutrition. Today we're joined by another guest, my friend Nick Tognietti. What's up, Nick? How are you?
Oh man, I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, dude. I wanted to bring Nick on to dive into women's health. I think there's a lot of issues that we see more and more these days when it comes to functional issues, hormonal, and I've seen it amongst some male clients too, but it's definitely mostly females. A lot of stress driven, a lot has to do with the pill and those kind of things, and we can talk about that today. But Nick has also dealt with his own functional issues, quite a few of them, right?
Oh yeah, a plethora.
I wanted to dive into that as well, kind of starting with his journey, what got him into fitness, those kind of things, and really what got you to explore this whole functional root cause side of things, which I'm very interested in. I'm diving into it more and more, and it's also out of necessity. Right? And Yumi talked about this when we met in Nashville.
Yeah,
we see it more and more. Right? More and more functional issues. People are not getting the help they deserve from the doctors. If there's even any testing, it's incomplete. They're not getting the appropriate help. So this is something I want to explore with you. But let's first just start with you, Nick. Who are you? What do you do? And what do you specialize in?
Yeah. So as you said, my name is Nick Tognietti. I kind of wear a couple hats. I'm a ordained pastor and used to run a local church out in Houston every week. I'm also a doctor in the faith as well. I work with a lot of seminaries, a lot of other doctors in the faith, pastors, kind of teaching them on how to do different things with their flocks and so forth. But yeah, then obviously I do run a nationwide functional nutrition practice. And I say nationwide just so that people know it's not isolated, but the reality is I have clients in other countries. I don't like to say worldwide because it makes it sound like I'm trying to say I'm in 80 countries, and that's just not the case, But I do have people outside of the country as well, Canada and so forth. But I on one hand, I feel like I was kind of raised in fitness, but on the other hand, that wasn't the case. I started getting really devoted to it all when I was about 15. I got real overweight starting when I was about 13. The doctors were, saying, hey, Nick's he's in a bad spot. He needs to get on a diet plan. He needs to get on a workout plan. I got really overweight when I hit puberty. The inspiration kind of behind it all, other than that, was my uncle was Mr. California multiple times. He was top 4 Mr. America, big time 90s bodybuilder, very very well known. Anybody can Google him. Any of the pros and Olympians know who my uncle is. Doesn't mean he was liked by everybody, but nevertheless, know who he is. And he kind of started getting me real interested into it. I'd go stay with him and live with him in California during the summers and whatnot. And then I just got real big into fitness. My body genetically just responded super well. I ended up starting to compete when I was 19. I became top 5 at Mr. Texas by the time I was 22. When I was 23, I was planning to go pro at Nationals in Miami in 2017. But I actually ended up having a little bit of a curveball for a few reasons. My uncle, when I was getting ready for Mr. Texas, had a heart attack and kidney failure. And at the end of the day, there was just no secret. It was because of the bodybuilding and the drugs and all of that. And that terrified the crap out of me at 21 years old. And I just remember crying in my parents' living room one day. And they were like, what are you crying about? I said, well, the whole trajectory of my life is now about to change. I go, I don't want to continue this sport if this is what it leads to. And I want a family. My uncle never had a family. I was like, I want a wife. I want kids. And I knew where it was leading. And I was like, but this is all I know. This is all I'm good at. What am I going to do? And I was coaching. I had some clients. But back then in the bodybuilding world, they were all broke. Every bodybuilding coach is struggling. You're not being able to support a family. So I always kind of wondered, what am I going to do? Well, even though I wasn't a believer yet, it's like God was opening doors for me. And as soon as I finished Mr. Texas, my business exploded. I'm 22 years old and I'm making, nothing crazy, but from the fitness perspective, I'm all online. My clients are all over the country. I'm making, 150 to 180 grand a year at 22. So like I said, is there people that are making way more than me? Sure, but from a general perspective, it's like, man, you know what? This is awesome. I don't need to compete anymore. And then at 23, I became the youngest bodybuilding judge in the history of bodybuilding. And so all of that started happening. Then I found the Lord at 24, got ordained, became a pastor, quit fitness entirely. Not from myself, I was always, experimenting and, but this was around the time in I'd say 2019, and 2018 was when I got ordained, and this is when I started getting real functional. And the reason being was I just started noticing I started having gut issues. I was like, why am I bloated and what's going on? This was totally non-existent to the fitness world, back then, right? Bodybuilding. And I started, getting into kombuchas and probiotics, and I started learning a lot about bowel movements. That's really where it started, was bowel movements essentially, and then it just kind of trickled from there. And then a couple years later, end of 2020, I started getting real sick, and I ended up, I'm 31 now, so obviously this is years before I even turned 30, and I ended up having stage 3 kidney disease, liver disease, hypothyroidism. I was pushing 2 autoimmune diseases, stage 3 and 4 adrenal insufficiency, prediabetes, all of these things, which like from like a health guru and nut, it's like, how am I pre-diabetic? How am I, like, you know what I mean? Like, what the heck? And I just started having all these issues that nobody could fix. I was meeting with gastros. I was meeting with clinics and nurse practitioners and doctors all over the country. Nobody was nobody was giving me answers. And I started seeing there were labs that were inconclusive. Like, I had studied labs starting back in 2015 really deeply under a nurse practitioner. He took me under his wing and I became a student of his. So I was already like, why are all these labs that y'all are running not conclusive? I don't know what these numbers are and these numbers. And long story short, I ended up getting bedridden for about 10 months, almost a year. I was bedridden completely. And the whole time I was bedridden, I just had my computer out 24/7, literally bedridden, like not kind of like, theoretically, like genuinely bedridden. And I just had my computer and phone out 24/7, and all I did was research. I probably researched more in that 2 to 3 year period than what most medical students do in 10 years. I mean, because I was desperate. This had my life depending on it now, Long story short, no nephrologist, kidney specialist could fix my kidneys, whatever. I ended up reversing stage 3 kidney disease in 8 weeks. I started doing an experiment on myself that worked. And then now I reverse kidney disease is one of my top things. Liver, all these things, right? I reversed it to where that became the foundation of Lifestyle of Eden, and it really just exploding. And now all these people, coming to get fixed and whatnot. And it is how I essentially became the founder of the 7 pillars of disease reversal, prevention, and longevity, which I know that you had another guest who's one of my mentees, Larry, on here. And I briefly listened to y'all's podcast, and he had brought up my mentor, Lifestyle of Eden, taught me. So it's the 7 pillars, and now clinics and doctors and functional coaches all over the country are applying them. And it's essentially the foundation of my university, which is debatably the biggest functional university in the country that will be dropping next month. It's the foundation of the whole university and everything that I do now. And so it's kind of how we got here.
That's amazing. It's yeah, again, dude, like I said earlier, out of necessity, I'm learning more about this stuff because it's showing up more and more. Same thing for you, like out of necessity, like you had to figure it out. It was your life, your health. And I mean, thank God you actually figured it out, you know what I mean? So that you can now actually help others. Because if we're talking, like reversing, kidney issues, let's be honest, there's probably a lot of people who struggle with that. And
to be specific, 1 in 6 U.S. adults have chronic kidney disease and they do not know it. 1 in 6. That's more prevalent than almost autoimmunes and endometriosis combined. It's unreal.
Crazy. That's crazy. And you would really think, this is the thing that kind of pisses me off in a way too, because dude, think about it, man, like there's so much money and resources available and information that we do have, and you'd think that we should be able to just get people healthy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not the case. I mean, before we hit record too, you're in the US, I'm in Norway, and I think generally speaking, people worldwide like to kind of like poo-poo the US and say like, oh, how terrible it is with healthcare. It's not that much better, worldwide. I mean, I see people here in Norway have issues and not getting the help they deserve and need. I see that back home where I'm from in Holland. I see it all around Europe. It's a worldwide thing, you know what I mean?
Sure. For sure.
That's why I think it's so interesting to dive into functional nutrition and, addressing the lifestyle. Because if you think about it, dude, like all of that stuff stems from lifestyle. It stems from what you've been eating for multiple years. and a pill's not going to fix that.
Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, and some people think I'm heartless for saying this, and I don't say it heartlessly. I don't say it without emotion or with empathy towards people who are going through it. But the reality is this. Outside of just the Lord doing bigger things than we can understand and whatnot, the reality is probably over 95% of all of our issues are self-inflicted, because all disease is metabolic, meaning it has to do with mitochondria. So when we're talking about mitochondrial dysfunction, we are talking 100% about lifestyle disorders. And so, like I said, are there certain things that the Lord purposely had me go through and inflicted me with in order to help me come closer to Him, or chastisement, or give me wisdom so that I can therefore help other people? Absolutely. Like, the Lord's always doing these things. So I don't discount that there's other variables that are going on behind the illnesses. But from a general perspective, especially a Gen Pop type situation, we're talking about all self-inflicted lifestyle diseases, endometriosis, PCOS, all types of PCOS, all types of, pre-diabetes. The thing is, pre-diabetes and diabetes used to be a thing 10 years ago where it was like, dude, you just eat crap food at McDonald's. But now that's rare. There's four top reasons for pre-diabetes and diabetes. And you got to keep in mind, like, how is Nick Tognietti, one who is like obsessive about his diet and everything, becoming a pre-diabetic? And it's because we have things that are way bigger than you just eating Oreo cookies before bed. We're talking about cortisol dysfunction leading to prediabetes. We're talking about systemic inflammation and insulin resistance due to a gut infection that's causing this prediabetes. Like, we're talking about such a cortisol dysfunction that it causes a hypothyroidism, and therefore you can't metabolize glucose. So things are becoming so much more than what they were in simplicity 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that even the literatures that are coming out for dementia and autoimmune, they're dated at 2023 and 2024. Like, these are brand new studies. And the reality is this: not every doctor, but most doctors, for example, who see patients, some doctors don't see patients, they're consultants. But other doctors who see patients, they have not looked at a medical literature in 25 years since they got out of residency, because they don't have the time. Whereas some of these other ones who are consultants, that's actually what they do, is read medical literatures for a living on a daily basis. But that's not most doctors. That's like 1 out of 15, 1 out of 20. And so that's the reason why this functional space is so pivotal, because we're stepping into all of the new content. The part of the functional space that I think is really lacking is we have skipped the basics of bodily functions. Like, if I was to ask somebody about fertility, with men, I've never heard a coach, to this day, I've never heard a functional coach besides myself talk about the prostate when it comes to fertility. Because you don't realize that the prostate develops 30% of your sperm. Why are we not talking about prostate? Like, because we don't know bodily functions in the functional space. And so we've skipped the basics. And that's where I really try to come marry the two in my university is, hey, let's take these critical components that you need from the conventional space, but let's bring the new development from a functional root cause approach. And when you marry it, you really start to realize neither are the devil. Both are missing certain pieces. And once you put those pieces together, man, you get some pretty awesome results.
Yeah. And that's a really good point, because I don't see people talk about that stuff. You know what I mean? And something that still kind of pisses me off is, like, I mean, let's be honest, like the misinformation, like when it comes to health and fitness, has always kind of been there, and it's not much better than 2012 when I was overweight and I was trying to like Google how to lose weight, and like I did all this crappy stuff, just shit that doesn't work, and it still doesn't work. But I always get very annoyed by the PTs who just say, you just got to be in a calorie deficit and blah blah blah. And I just had a call with a new client a couple days ago. She said my coach put me on 1,000 calories, and I did Weight Watchers, and again was doing 1,000 calories, and I was doing all this cardio, and now they're struggling, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna help them reverse that and get healthy again. But like you still see it, dude, and we got to talk women's health. We got to talk gut health. especially these days, because it's not just a meal plan anymore or a training program for many people, I would say.
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, nutrition is only one of the seven pillars. Out of my seven, literally, it's only one, and I would even add it's not even the biggest one. There's a lot of people, and if it was, then that means everyone who ate right would be fine. But why is it that all these people who eat right still have their gut infections, cortisol dysfunction, they have their fertility issues, whatever? Because there's six other pillars that you're totally violating. And so, one of the things that I'm real big on, people hear about me talk about it all the time, is the blue zones. The 5 blue zones around the world. You've got Sardinia, Italy, you've got Okinawa, Japan, you've got Loma Linda, California, you've got Ikaria, Greece, and you've got Nicoya, Costa Rica. And the 6th one is actually Singapore. But these are the 5, maybe 6, but we'll say 5. The 5 places around the world that have basically no dementia, no cancer, no disease. Generation after generation, they all live to be over 100. Why are they so healthy? Why are they thriving? Why are they completely counteracting what people say are just age-related diseases and, still having crazy sex drive and everything else? What was crazy was I had bought an apartment in Ikaria, Greece to do a controlled study on the blue zone there. About a year and a half ago, I guess a year ago. It was going to be October of last year, but I bought it back in August of last year, and the funny thing was I had no idea, but they're doing my 7 pillars without realizing they're doing the 7 pillars, and it's a total lifestyle switch on what we're doing for health. And the reality is, look. We can have this person argue why this diet's better, this person argue why this diet's better. Both are full of crap. I don't really care if your diet worked for 7 months or 3 years. That does not prove longevity. There's just one fact. The fact is this. Opinions aside, the fact in unarguable evidence is this. There is only one type of diet and lifestyle that has proven to reverse and prevent all disease and produce longevity, hence my 7 pillars of disease reversal, prevention, longevity. And it is the biblical regimen that God designed for us that the 5 blue zones live out. Those are the only civilizations that have ever proven hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years to get those results. You can sit there and find your I won't name certain names because I don't want to bash anybody, but certain people who promote the keto diets and carnivores or even like veganism, whatever. Like I don't care. Like promote what you want to promote, but they're gonna say no. Look at this, and that's fine. But your study is based on what? The last 6 months, the last year and a half. You have no real longevity proof or what that does to your kidneys or brain health for the next 60 years when you're 80. We only have one thing that's ever done that. And that's the blue zones, period.
Yeah, dude, with those diets too, it's such. I really wonder sometimes. I really would love to know if some people are just really spreading misinformation with ill intent. Because I don't know, dude. Like sometimes it's you can't tell me that it's healthy to not eat fruit and vegetables and those kind of things. And sure, maybe veggies are gonna cause some issues with people who have gut issues, but like. It's not this like only meat or only veggies.
It's because money is behind everything.
Yeah, supplements and
every supplement company, every coach, every hey, use my discount code. Like, look, I do that stuff too with people that I really believe in and whatnot. But like at the end of the day, like the Bible tells us, money is the biggest blinder for anybody. It doesn't matter how righteous or unrighteous you are. Nobody's above the bribery and blindness that comes whenever money's involved. And everybody's trying to sell some product. Everybody's trying to do this, that, and the other. Like, when you just drop all the money for a minute, and if you were to say, hey, my bills are going to be paid for the rest of my life, I don't ever need to work again, you would see a lot of people's attitudes and words start to change. Because now they're not doing what they're doing for money. The reality is this. The stuff that I teach is free of charge. My 7 pillars are free of charge. Now, granted, do people have to hire me to just like initially reverse their disease? Because like that does take a lot of protocoling and complexities. Sure, and that's the reason why I make a living or whatever. But the reality is this. I lose clients every single week because people sign 6-month contracts with me or year contracts, and then I get them healthy, And then they don't have a reason to stick with me because they're like, hey, I'm freaking healthy now. I'm thriving. I'm pregnant. I'm doing the 7 pillars. Nick, thank you. And on one hand, it's like, oh man, I just lost thousands of dollars that could be recurring for next month. They all, 7 clients left me. But at the end of the day, that's, if I'm not being selfish and I'm just trying to be like, hey, money aside, that's the goal, right? It's just hard because today, sure, we still do need to make a living and stuff, but that is essentially the goal, or should be the goal. But when you take money out of it, now we start to have a problem, and that's really where the root of all of this misinformation or people competing with information comes from.
Yeah. And it's funny, I literally just posted this in my stories. I was like, it sounds like a funny business model, but like my goal is actually for you to not need me anymore.
Yeah.
Because at some point, like it's, of course, we're talking weight loss, those kind of things, maintaining that. And especially if there's more functional issues, like the stuff that you help your clients with, there's going to be more in-depth protocols, specific things for people to follow when it comes to supplementation, those kind of things. That's a little bit more in-depth, right? But either way, like at some point, like they're going to be on their own. And it's then up to their habits, it's up to their lifestyle to keep that up. I just got a message from a client a couple days ago, and she's like, hey, I'm still practicing these basics, and I'm still chewing my food properly, I'm sleeping well. I'm like, fuck yeah,
Amen.
Because those basic things, like that's what that's what we want people to stick with. But it's their responsibility also to keep that up, because you also know that some people won't, and then you just go right back to getting unhealthy.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the thing that I recommend everybody to do is 2 things. On my podcast, on Lifestyle Eating Podcast on Spotify or Apple, I have 7 podcasts on the 7 pillars. In fact, Larry, the one who came on your podcast, that's my mentee, he did all 7 with me. He's adopted them in a very great way. Always, like anybody else, can always keep improving, but nevertheless, he's doing a great freaking job. And listening to those, but also going on Netflix and watching the 4 episodes of Blue Zones. Like, it will bring the 7 pillars in real practicality. And, one of the things I tell people, like, and I don't say this to boast, I'm just, for me, if it can be transparency to help somebody, then freaking awesome. So, like, my business, thank the Lord, has done very, very well. I mean, I've had my months where, I make over 50K months or whatever. And just last month in August, I made the lowest amount that I have made in a year. And I told my mentees in one of our meetings this week that, and I said, the reason being is simple. I go, look, like, actually, you don't know this, but just, I actually just got married in California last week.
Oh, really? Dude, that's great.
And so,
congrats.
Thank you. And so, her name's Erica. And so, me and Erica, like, I've just realized all I really care about is just being able to spend time with her and our families, like, whenever I want. So, like, before this podcast, I took an hour and a half and just said, hey, let's walk up to the coffee shop and go sit out there and enjoy the weather and just hang out or whatever. Like that's the stuff that I want to do. And I pulled back a lot from clients where I used to work with 100 at a time. Now I've got like, just right under 60 or whatever. But I'm making way less money. But the thing is, I'm doing what I genuinely want to do, which is I can see family whenever I want. I can hang out. I'm not working myself into the ground. And that's what the Blue Zones are about. The second pillar of disease reversal prevention and longevity is community, environmental toxicity, and stress management. And in my practice, being a pastor and doctor, I also do therapy for my clients. And one of the things that I see with so many of their cortisol issues is, number one, they're isolated. They have no community. They don't have the community that Blue Zones have every day. They're always at happy hour at 4 o'clock or having wine nights with people, whatever. But they're having community. They're laughing. They are truly enjoying the presence of other people and not an isolated thought, which is proven to cause disease. But environmental toxicity, I always tell people, like, people are in a lot of rough marriages. And the reality is, because people are working themselves into the ground, they're not investing into each other and taking that time to just be like, hey, you're my number one priority. People are trying to buy too big of homes that they can't afford without working themselves into the ground. Now the wife has to stress about cleaning up this massive freaking house 6 days a week and dealing with your 3 kids and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, we've left simplicity. And that's why I say my pillars are free of charge. And so what I'm trying to do to the greatest of my ability, it's why on my stories I'm sharing a lot about this right now. I'm trying to share my daily life as much as I can without being annoying, having to pull out my phone in my own life, where I want people to see the way I live and the way I eat. Like, I don't measure my food out anymore or anything like that. I want people to see the way I live, the way I just go outside and I start grounding in the morning to remove inflammation and all these other things. Or me and Erica will go, coffee break or whatever whenever I want. Or I'll just, I'll do whatever the heck I want to do on my own time, because I'm no longer caring about all the money and trying to have the nice thing. And, like, the thing about it is, social media is such a blessing and a curse, and everybody's trying to do things to impress social media. Dude, I didn't even post on social media that we were engaged when I proposed to her.
Yeah.
Or that we got married. Because I just don't care. I'm just like, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want anybody's feedback, good or bad. I don't want either. I'm like, I just want to, like, live my life and enjoy it every day. And, like, I'm at the lowest stress that I have been in 4 years. And it's because I feel like I've cracked the code with my 7 pillars and the blue zones, and just being like, I don't need a nice house. I need an office that I can study scripture in and functional medicine, and I just need a kitchen where I can cook. And outside of that, man, I just want to have a really great marriage. I want to have beautiful, healthy kids, and, like, that's it, dude. I don't even own a watch. You know what I mean? Like, out of everything that I have, I don't even own a watch. I don't own anything nice. The only 2 things that I have nice is I have a high rise in Houston, and I have a Corvette, you know what I mean, that I got for a great price. But other than that, I'm like, I just bought my first suit for the wedding 2 weeks ago. Like, I didn't even own a suit, I don't own any nice things like people think, most people, or I do, or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, long story short, the stuff that actually matters,
Exactly.
Because you can work as much as you want and, be so career driven, but if everything outside of that just sucks, you're not going to be happy. I'll tell you this. Actually, I talked about this in the last podcast too, but when I went through a long-term breakup last year, I had that realization for myself. I'm like, all I've kind of been doing is work, and outside of that, I have not done a good job at nurturing friendships, relationships, having fun, just doing stuff I really enjoy, and that's stuff I had to work on, you know what I mean? And I got too caught up in that grind, and then now I don't do that anymore, and life is way better for it, you know what I mean?
I was going to say, when you can make it to where you no longer need a vacation from your daily and weekly life, dude, you freaking made it, bro. Like I don't want a vacation from my life, because I feel like I feel like I've set things up in a way where, like, I feel really good. Am I still improving in it? Is there still certain areas on, like, a Monday or Wednesday with client updates where I'm a little stressed or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I need to maybe arrange this or arrange that. So I'm still improving in it, no doubt. But that's really where I've gotten to, where I'm going to be honest with you, like, when I was making consistent, 35 to 50K months or whatever, dude, it was the most stressful time of my freaking life. And I hated my business. I was telling Taylor, our business coach, I said, Taylor, I'm going to be honest, I freaking hate my business. I'm making more than I've ever made, and probably debatably more than almost any of her clients except for 1 or 2. And I'm like, I freaking hate my business. Like, it's driving me to the ground. I'm more unhealthy than ever. Like, this sucks. And I just learned real quick. I was just like, dude, this is not the life I want. It's not the life I want. It's putting me in the same position of all the diseased people, where they retire, but now they're spending all their retirement money on me because they've lived a crap life for the last 40 years. And I'm like, this is not the life I want. I want to live a life now where I don't need a vacation from it.
I love that. And then, do you think that's also one of the bigger reasons why so many people are just burned out these days, and they just run themselves into the ground, and throw on top of that maybe also trying to lose weight by doing a whole bunch of HIIT or cardio classes, and under eating and being malnourished? Like, a lot comes from that, right? Just that career driven, like, just hustle culture where we drive ourselves into the ground.
The American dream is a cancer in disguise. So I'll give you an example. On the 4th episode of Blue Zones, there was a man. He's from Ikaria, Greece, where that Blue Zone is in Ikaria, Greece. Ikaria, however you want to say it. And he moved to America when he was young 20s, because he wanted the American dream. So he moved there, started a successful company, had a nice car, wife and kids, big house, all this stuff. He was 65 years old. and no, I'm sorry, 66 years old. And he got a diagnosis from 3 different doctors, 3 different opinions, all 3 of them. You have terminal lung cancer with 6 months to live. So he said, okay, I'm going to die in 6 months. So I really have 2, the only question becomes, where do I want to die? And so he said, well, I can either die here or I can die back at home in Ikoria. So he and his wife moved back to Ikoria. 6 months go by. Still good. And before this happened, he planted a vineyard. And he said, I'm not going to be able to take these grapes to wine, but my wife will. And when she does, she'll think of me. So 6 months later, he's still alive. 2 years later, still alive. 5 years, 10 years, 37 years later, he's 102 years old. And they said, dude, what'd you do? And he goes, I don't know. I guess I just forgot to die. And he says that the thing is, he goes, I never changed my lifestyle. I didn't start eating healthier. My environment here is just Mediterranean. He goes, I just changed my environment. The environment here is slower. I'm not competing in the American industry. I'm not trying to make more money. I'm just experiencing the Icorian wine and the air and going on walks on nice trails and enjoying time with my wife. And it's the lifestyle. It's like here in the United States, there's this spirit, and it's going into other areas and other countries for sure. But it starts here, and it's like that spirit like of pride that you have to compete and get X, Y, and Z, and it's like, bro, none of that stuff matters. Like, it does not matter. It's not a flex, and so this, like I said, to me, the blue zones and just really taking my 7 pillars and truly understanding them, not for what they say on the surface, like community on the surface, that's simple. Yeah. I'm talking about real deep practicality to everyone's life. My 7 pillars are so deep that I'm like, these can't be checked off boxes either. Oh, I did an ice bath today. Oh, I ate my meal today. Oh, as long as you're doing it that way, you're still not doing it as an automatic thought process of lifestyle. This stuff just has to become part of your life, part of your nature. And when you do this, oh my gosh, man, all these things start reversing. PCOS, fertility issues, endometriosis, prostate issues, breast issues, thyroid dysfunction, cortisol dysfunction. I mean, it's literally insane. SSRI needs and all these other medications and so forth. I mean, they all start to just wither away. And it's funny how you brought up women earlier, about like, hey, women's health and this, that, and the other. Women are the ones that get hit out of men and women way more. You look at every illness, look at dementia in the United States. 70% of dementia cases are women. You look at autoimmunes. Out of every 5 autoimmunes, 4 are women. 80% are women. Women only get endometriosis. Women only get PCOS. Men get prostate issues, maybe some skin issues, and then some gut and cortisol dysfunction or whatever. But like, women are the ones who are getting pounded with these things.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
So it's funny. As soon as we get off here, I actually have a podcast for my podcast on this exact topic. And what it is, it's you see, there's a concept in the Bible. No pastor or doctor I've ever heard talks about it. To me, it's kind of a hidden parable, and it's about the sun and the moon. And the sun in the scriptures, the husband is likened to the sun in the sky, and the wife is considered like the moon. And it says in the scripture that their relationship, the husband and wife, is sun and moon. Well, if you look at the sun and moon, it's very fascinating that at nighttime when that moon is shining, not a lot of people know this, but the moon actually has 0 light. It has no light of its own. It generates 0. All of that light that you see from the moon at night it's a mirror reflection of the sun. The sun is shining to the moon, and the moon reflects it to the earth. And so we see what the moon is giving, but the reality is we don't think that the moon is a reflection of the sun. And so what it's saying is we're seeing the wife, we're seeing women, we're seeing the light or the lack thereof that they're giving off. But we're not realizing they're just a reflection of what they are or are not getting from the man.
Dude.
And I've been talking about how this generation, like if you go to my Instagram, in my bio it says 1 Kings 2:2, be a man. And the reason being is because that's what I believe the epidemic is about. I don't believe it's a female problem. I believe it's a man problem. I believe men have not been stepping into their role to truly pour in to their wife to where they are emotionally fed. I believe women are emotionally starved. Let me just be very vulnerable and real. I was married previously, and I did this to my ex-wife. My ex-wife had her own issues, and guess what? I had mine. And one of the things that I starved her of was emotional fulfillment. And I didn't realize it till after. And it's all of that pain that I went through that gave me the wisdom I have today that the Lord has shown me. And I've just been seeing the epidemic. And you look at all these autoimmunes, they're all having to do with internal emotion and stress. That's actually the oxidative damage root in the body that's causing the autoimmunes. And every single case I have when I do therapy, it's because I see the husband doing something that, whether he realizes it or not, that is a neglect of the reality of what the wife needs to be, how she needs to be poured into, how she needs to be spoken to, how she needs to be praised and lifted up, how she needs to be raised up with such authority in front of the kids, how, like, there's just all these things that have to do with men not taking the responsibility. And the reality is this: two figures we need to focus on is the root goes back to the Garden of Eden, hence why my business is called the Lifestyle of Eden. When Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, sure, Eve is the one that took that fig. It was actually a fig. People think it was an apple. It was a fig. But she was the one that took it and then gave it to Adam. But what's interesting is when God came to Adam and said, Adam, bro, what the heck? What did Adam do? He said, it's not my fault. It's the woman you gave me. And then what did the woman do? It's not my fault. It's the serpent who came and beguiled me. Notice what happened. There was a pattern of nobody taking responsibility. That is the problem with this generation. This generation does not know how to just genuinely take responsibility for everything that's under their authority. And so one thing I always tell people blame Eve. The reality is this: whoever is in charge, it's your freaking fault. If your kid goes and throws a rock at someone's car window and breaks the window, are you going to say, no, dude, that was my son, that's not me? No, it's your freaking fault. You're the one paying for it. That's your responsibility. The same thing with the wife, whatever it is, same thing with a CEO. If something happens with Amazon, nobody's going to know that Amazon worker. Who are they going to, everybody on the news is going to be blaming the CEO of Amazon. Why? Because it's all under your authority. It's a lack of being a man and understanding truly what a man is. A man is not somebody who provides and pays all the bills. It's not what the Bible says. If a man does that, freaking great. But that's not what defines a man. A man is not somebody with abs. These are not the things that define a man. The things that define, because I know a lot of men who are genuine men that cannot pay the bills right now. Their businesses are slow. They can't get a job. They're trying. They're not lazy. They're trying. It's just the way it is. But they are freaking men. And the reality is, a man is this: one who takes full and utter and total responsibility for everything within his surrounding. And like I said, the woman, all of her illnesses, all of these things are just a reflection of the things that the husband is giving unto her. And I believe that this is the true code. And like I said, I'm about to have an entire podcast after this with another guest, because this is the biggest topic in Revelation that I think will just fix so many things or make people confront their stuff.
First of all, we'll definitely link that episode in this episode's description. Like, once it's up, we'll make sure to update it. That's a really, I've never kind of thought about it that way. And I love this, because you are very right. People are not taking responsibility. Men are not taking responsibility. Because then you get the excuses. There's always something else or someone else, right? It's their fault, or
sure,
I'm working too much, and whatever it is. But I also see women that I coach, right, who are stressed as hell, and they barely get any time and energy for themselves. They got to do all this stuff, right?
Yep.
On top of their job. And then sometimes a man is, yeah, he's working hard. Don't get me wrong. They're also working hard. But outside of that, not that much. Not that much support. Not that much like, hey, let me give you a hand with this.
Yeah.
And
some people use the excuse like, oh, we got a lot of bills to pay, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's your fault for thinking that you need that massive house that you can hardly
Dude,
afford.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like
100%.
either way, it still comes down to your pride and my 7 pillars, and you just taking responsibility for I bit off more than I can healthfully chew. Like that's just the reality, you know?
It is. Because I put it like, at least this is how I look at it, right? Yeah, I got bills to pay. And if I can't pay those bills, then I'm going to have to do some type of budgeting.
Right.
And figure out a way so I'm not spending so much fucking money.
Yeah.
So it goes to the stuff that's actually important, you know?
Yeah.
I know things are getting more expensive, and you know, I get that, absolutely. But still, dude, like, you don't need that much.
Well, dude, I mean, so like me and Erica, we were like literally, like I said before this, we were at this coffee shop sitting there, and like we were talking about how, you know, she owned, like I said, we have a high rise in Houston because that was what I brought into the marriage, so we have that. But she brought this house into the marriage, and so we pay a mortgage here, like she's owned this house. Like we both are not like huge fans of this house, you know. Like, I'm thankful for it. I thank the Lord we have a roof over it. But like, you know, if we could choose, you know, it'd be like, hey, you know what? Like, let's maybe start over together and have like, you know, let's go get a new home, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of our topic right now. And I was looking at some homes, and I found 2 that I really liked because I would love to be on some land. Because I want to have like chickens. We have chickens here, but I want to have chickens. I want to do some stuff for ministry, you know, this, that, and the other. And it's interesting because, you know, where we are here in Missouri, you know, there's a small here in the town we're in. I found a 4-bedroom home on like, you know, 6 or 7 acres, and it's like 490 or 500K or something like that. Then in Farmington, where we live, there's, you know, it's a full-blown kind of town and city. There's restaurants, there's all these things, right? But about 20 minutes up the road, there's a little town that there's like nothing there as far as like a bunch of stores and stuff. And we found this sick freaking house, 4 bedrooms on 10 acres of beautiful grassland for $290. And I was like, dude, we found the same thing but better for $250,000 cheaper. And so we were sitting there talking about it, like, hey, we could just do this because it like come into the house that's more expensive because it's more convenient or whatever for being closer to stores or whatever. But it's like, or we could be freaking smart and save $250,000 and have this freaking house, even though we might have to drive an extra 15 minutes and just be smarter with how or when we do errands and whatnot. And so, like, the thing is, you can have certain things that you want to have, but when people are making decisions out of pride and, you know, they don't understand financial literacy, like, you know, I always tell people, your kids don't need to go to an expensive private school to be successful. I dropped out of high school, and I run, you know, one of the biggest functional practices in the country. You know, like you don't need all that crap. You know, I'm fluent in multiple languages. Like I didn't need high school and college and all this other stuff. You need 4 things. That's the reality. You need 4 things to be successful in this world. Number 1, you need to have a deep, intimate relationship with the Lord and understanding of His Word. That's where all of my wisdom for reversing autoimmunes and everything I've ever done has come from the Word. People think I'm kidding. I'm not joking. The second thing is you need to have financial literacy. Most people have no idea how to put 3 to 6 months savings aside, how to have an emergency fund, how to have a short-term savings fund, how to have retirement concepts, how to budget and stay within your means and go below your, like, people don't understand those things. I actually studied under certain financial advisors because I didn't naturally know that stuff. I made mistakes when I was in my early 20s. So now I know that stuff. The third thing is you need to have a true understanding of my 7 pillars in nutrition. Because all of your crap that you think, hey, low carb this, low carb that, it's a bunch of crap. You don't need any of that stuff. It doesn't last. You're screwing yourself. You're raising your cortisol and lowering your thyroid. And the fourth thing, you just need to travel and have human experience. You need to know how to relate to people. You need to know how people think. You need to know how to do these things, because the reality is, if you want to be in any type of sales or entrepreneurship, like Taylor will tell you, 89.7% of all entrepreneurship is based on EQ, not IQ. Emotional quotient. If you have those 4 things, you'll be radically successful, but we don't have any of those. And so like the financial literacy part alone is putting people in all these stress, buying things they should not buy in a way they should not buy it. Their stress is super high. Now their marriages are not able to come together as much. They're having sex once or twice a month. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's all jacked up from the foundations.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, dude. Like, it's also crazy because I know people are dealing with a lot of shit. You know what I mean? And they are dealing with stress and those kind of things. But like even that financial literacy thing, like that's not something you generally learn about, which is another reason why so many people struggle. And then there's the additional stress of chasing that career just to make ends meet. And now you don't have, well, I argue everyone has time for it, but people think they don't have time to eat healthy, or they can't invest in maybe coaching or those kind of things. And now it's just a cascade. It's just getting worse and worse. And now we're dealing with all these issues, right? Because kind of going back to women's health too, we're seeing it more and more these days.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, all of these things are reversible, but I always tell people, spend money, just spend it and depend on the right thing. So like, for example, me and Erica, like, Erica, before she met me, she would tell you very upfront, she's like, hey, like I've got to be very, very wise with my money because I don't make a lot of money. And so I make barely just enough to like pay my monthly bills or whatever. Whereas me, I've made good money, but even when I made like no money, like when I made, let's call it $3,000 a month, right? I still only shopped at Sprouts. The same thing I bought then, I buy now. And I've told her before, I said, Erica, if I'm going to buy expensive stuff, it's going to be my food. Like, I'm going to spend those extra dollars on my organic food and wild-caught fish and organic grass-fed beef and this, that, and the other. And even though that's crazy expensive, then I'm going to lower my expenses in another area of my life, and that's going to be where it goes. So spend your money where it needs to go. And then if you have excess money to spend on this, this, and this, cool. But the reality is, like, when somebody comes to me and says like, oh, I can't afford to buy high quality food and this, that, and the other, I go, no, you can. You just have too many other stupid subscriptions and other things that you're paying for. True. You're not prioritizing the fact that like the food that you feed you and your kids, that is the top priority, hands down.
Yeah, I do agree. And I think this is, the same thing goes for, I often talk about, people really claiming they're super busy, but in the meantime we're just distracted, we're not focused, we're always on social media. Like if we think we're too busy, look at your screen time. If you think you really don't have enough money to eat healthy, have you sat down and looked at your bank account and just went through every transaction?
Yeah.
What are we spending our money on? And then you'll start to see pretty soon it all adds up. Right.
Dude, I had somebody, a married couple who I'm very good friends with, literally. So this is nothing against their character. They're freaking awesome people. Love them to death. And been friends with them for years. They've considered me their spiritual mentor for years, all these things. And them two became clients of mine. And they were two of many like real great success stories and everything else. And I remember about 2 months into working with me, the wife started complaining, saying like, Nick, I don't have time to make these meals and put the meals together. Like, and so I said, hey, with all due respect, I'm busier than you. And I just told her flat out. I go, I'm a pastor, I'm a doctor, I'm a published author. I have 100 clients. I have a mentoring program. Like, I'm sorry. And this was back when I was in California, so I owned the gym that I owned out there. I'm sorry. Like, the reality is, like, I'm busier than you, and you have a husband, you have a kid, that's fine, but I'm 10 times busier than you, and I figure out how to do this on my own. So what we just need to do is do time management. So I said, why don't we get on a call, and I want you to break down the time that you wake up with me, and we're going to go every hour until you go to sleep, and then including how many hours you get to sleep. We're going to do everything. And this is what I've done with a lot of clients, because this is, quite frankly, a very common excuse. Dude, I'm not even kidding. I'm literally... Johan, I'm so serious. So we get on this call, and I go, hey, when do you get off work? She goes, I get off at 5. Then I get home, and I said, well, when do you put your daughter to bed? She goes, about 8:30. And I say, oh, okay. Then what do you do? And I say, well, then we get to bed by about 8:30 or 9. And I said, so when do you go to sleep? She goes, usually about like 1 a.m. And I said, what? And I go, what are you doing for 5 hours? She goes, well, we that's like when we like binge watch our TV shows. And I said, no wonder you're complaining to me that you can't wake up at 5 a.m. I go, you're complaining to me because you're spending 4 hours every night, maybe even 5. Because really they kind of start at like 8 p.m. Their daughter goes to bed at 8:30, but like 7:30 or 8, they're on the freaking couch. And I'm like, you're spending 4, 5, 6 hours a night watching TV, and you have the audacity to tell me that you don't have time. They have to wake up at 7:30 because they need at least 6 hours of sleep or whatever. And I'm like, dude, 7:30, I've been up for 3.5 hours already, bro. Like, I wake up at 4, you know what I mean? Like, and so I'm like, I'm not telling you need to wake up at 4. I'm not even saying you need to wake up at 5. But 5:30 or 6, I go, listen, like, to me, I feel like that's pretty reasonable, to do. So, and so then we changed her schedule to where I said, you need to be in bed by 9 and you need to be passed out by 10. No freaking later than that. Like, you have plenty of time. Like, quite frankly, I should be saying you should be passed out by 9 or 9:30. But let's just say 10 to, like, give you some leeway. And that changed her life. And she goes, I just can't believe I didn't see this. And I'm like, to me, I don't see how you don't see it. But that is the reality of a lot of people, is they're just kind of in that way. And I'm like, dude, you have freaking time. You're just not realizing you waste so much time, not only at night, you waste a ton during the day. You're on your phone. You're not really being super overly productive with time block schedules. Like, it's just people not really knowing how to do that. And I think that once you do this, you realize you have way more freaking time than you thought.
100%. There's always things we can do and install to save time. There's always a solution there. You know what I mean?
For sure.
There's ways to save money. We can make it work. And I do agree with you. I've thought a similar thing. I've never told my clients this, but I know for a fact that I'm busier than many of them.
Yeah.
And I have more shit to kind of do. And, do I live a life outside of work? Absolutely I do, right?
Exactly, right.
But also then, there's still the nutrition. You and me too. Yes, we do this, but it doesn't mean that we don't need to meal prep or have some type of system in place so that we keep eating healthy, that we work out, that we actually get our sleep in. Because, you get up super early, you also sleep enough. Because I know how big you are asleep, right?
8 hours, dude. And so, and the thing is, too, is that, like, I tell people, number one, when I put things into so I told somebody I think it was in ministry. Somebody saw me post a story when I was in my high rise, and I'm just laying on the couch with Kaya, my dog.
Yeah.
And they said, Nick, like, you talk about how busy you are and you couldn't do this for me. I just saw you said you were laying on your couch for an hour and a half. And I said, just because I don't have something on my schedule does not mean I'm available. I go, you need to understand something. I have boundaries, and I make sure that I have my time to spend with my wife, to spend with just me and my dog, to spend with me and my family. That is part of being busy. That is part of living the 7 pillars, is the fact that just because you see me just sitting on the couch with my family doesn't mean I have time. It means that that's part of my schedule. That's part of my busyness, that I need to make sure that I have this unrushed, cherish time with my family. And the other thing too is, I've always kind of said, hey, I'm going to budget out $400 a week for organic food, and that's just for me and Kaya. Like, Kaya, my dog, eats grass-fed meat, organic rice. Like, she eats she eats better than 99% of humans. And that was kind of my rule of thumb. Well, when me and Erica got together, and we're also paying, she brought a son into our marriage, Weston.
Cool.
To where, like, I'm paying for all of our groceries, right, and all these different things. And so I noticed the first couple of weeks we started kind of like spending money a little more recklessly when it came to our groceries. And I was like, oh wow, last week we spent $540 or what. And so I was kind of like, I go, hey, like, can we figure out a way to still make sure we keep my priorities of organic and stuff? But I go, we got to stay under 400. Like, that's just my budget for our family. I can't go more than that. So she goes, okay, cool. So she brought us to Aldi. There's this store called Aldi here. And bro, we bought all organic food for the whole week, bro, at $180. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what have I been freaking missing? I'm just spending all this freaking cash. And so my point is this: there's always a way to do things better and to do it more efficient. Like you were saying, like, you have the time, you can spend the money on it. You've just got to learn how to not be lazy, make it a priority, and figure out how to do it better. And this is why, like, we need the community. We need people around us that say, hey, this is how I do this. Why don't you try this? Or why don't you try that? Yeah. This, you can do it. I'm telling you, everybody can do it.
Yeah. And it even goes back to, like, what you were just saying with, I mean, anything really, the things we're talking about, like financials, time management, staying up until 1 a.m. watching TV. It's a responsibility thing. It's understanding, like, yeah, I get it. It is, let's be honest, it is nice to chill on the couch for hours and not do shit. You know? Of course, we all love that sometimes.
Yeah.
But at some point, we also need to understand that, hey, I got to take that responsibility and understand that I do actually need to sleep. I do actually need to save the money and spend it on something else that's more important.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say no to that extra drink or staying up until 2 a.m. after going out. I'm gonna actually choose to do the healthy thing. It's taking responsibility for your own health, because at the end of the day, dude, like, we have to also, you know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna get any better if you just keep living like you're fucking in your 20s.
But it's what
you know what I mean? Like,
it's what you just said. It goes back to being a man, taking responsibility, realizing there is freaking consequences to your stupid actions and to your smart actions, and that you've got to just take responsibility and realize that this is the reality of whatever it is that you're doing, and just living a healthier lifestyle so that your kids can learn that lifestyle. Like me and Erica were talking about it today. You know, like, she knows that I'm real big on, if I wake up at 4 a.m. every day, I need to be in bed by 8. You know, I'm big on my 8 hours. Like, it is what it is. Well, tonight, so I used to, you know, work with pro boxers and was getting ready for Golden Gloves and stuff like that back in the day. And so I'm real big into boxing. And, like, people that follow my stories see that that's the type of training that I do and stuff. And so I really like watching pro fights, going to pro boxing fights, things of that nature. Well, tonight is what they're calling the fight of the century since Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather. It's with Terrence Crawford and Canelo. And the prelim fights start at 8, which means their fight is probably going to be at like 10:30. And so Erica had said tonight, or this morning, she goes, Nick, you realize that that's going to be at like 10:30 or 11. You're not going to be up for that. Because she knows I don't stay up that late. And I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I know tomorrow morning I have to wake up early. But I said, I'm staying up freaking late tonight. And I know I'm going to be tired. I'll get a little extra sleep on Saturday or something like that, but I want to stay up and watch that fight. But that's me understanding, like, that's going to be my reality. I know that I'm crunching my sleep down, but I also never do that. You know, it's rare for me to do that. But this is a cool event that I want to watch. It's something that I really enjoy, is boxing and doing this, that, and the other. And so I said, even if I have to fall asleep at 8 and then set an alarm to wake up at 10, you know, for that fight, like, I really want to watch that. And so, but it's just me taking responsibility and having discipline. Most people don't have discipline. They can't say no. They go with the flow of the whim too much. And I'm like, you can't go off your feelings. You have to go off of what's needed. And if you know that you shouldn't do that, then don't do that. But it's a discipline thing that I don't think a lot of people have.
Yeah. No, I agree. And kind of, bringing it back to like the functional issues and those kind of things, like we also there have to take the responsibility and understand that, yeah, sure, it might be fun to keep drinking, it might be fun to keep eating like crap or not sleep enough, and you'd much rather watch Netflix, but if your hair is falling out and you're constipated and you have no cycle and you can't lose weight and all this stuff.
Exactly.
We have to, you know, like, you have to do something about it.
No, 100%. I mean, to me, it's like I said, it's more simple than people think. I think most people just don't know where to start. And that's why
absolutely.
That's why I say, hey, listen, go listen to my 7 pillars. Go watch the 4 episodes of Blue Zones. And then I would hire a coach who knows my 7 pillars, because then that way, go through a season paying that extra fee to a coach so you can learn for 3 to 6 months, 12 months, and then after that, don't pay the coach anymore. But at least you just learn foundations that you're going to teach to your children and to your children's children for generations. It's going to pay off in so many freaking ways of positivity and fruit bearing. You know, to me, it's not an expense; it's an investment that you are going to get a 100%. Massive ROI on.
You're impacting generations. You're impacting the people around you, your friends, even family. Right? It's so important. And I will say that too, right? Because obviously we're talking about taking responsibility, and we're talking about actually, you know, just making a decision. But it is hard, let's be honest. For most people to figure it out. I mean, when I was overweight, I also tried to Google, like, you know, how to lose weight, those kind of things. Like, I also had no idea where to look. And it's the same thing now these days, because people are not getting the help from their doctors, etc. So it is difficult. So all I can say is, you know, when someone's listening to this and you are dealing with gut issues, you know, talk to Nick, right? Talk to me, or even if it's just to reach out and try to get a little clarity on what you're dealing with, if you are not getting the help you deserve and need. Because I gotta say this too, there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of crap out there, a lot of marketing schemes, but there's a lot of good people too.
Yeah,
I'd say fewer, but there's good people too.
Amen.
And you gotta look for those people.
Absolutely, dude. I fully agree. That's good.
That being said, I also want to be respectful of your time. I see we're just over an hour right now, and I know you got another podcast to do, so I do want to let you go. But we should absolutely do this again. I think we could keep talking for multiple hours more.
We haven't even gotten into specifics, with
no, 100%.
any illness or anything. Absolutely, this is just a good overview. I loved it.
Yeah, let's do that. That being said, where can people find you? Do you have any announcements to share with us?
Yeah. So on Facebook, it's just my personal Facebook, Nick Tognietti. All of my posts I do on Instagram goes there. My TikTok is Lifestyle of Eden, Eden, and then my Instagram, which is always overflowing with stuff on my page and on my stories, is at lifestyle_of_Eden, Eden. I'm constantly posting footage. I also have my podcast. A new podcast drops every Friday morning on Spotify and on Apple. Podcasts are just Lifestyle of Eden. And then I do have I do have my mentorship for like functional coaches, medical students, practitioners, things of that nature. But I have my functional university that is dropping October 9th of this year. So literally in just about a month and a couple days. And that is for people who are medical students, they are doctors, they're functional coaches, they're practitioners, registered dietitians, nurse practitioners. I have cardiac nurses, all these different people, even including people that are not coaches that really want to start to get raised up in the field. And then I even have people that are none of those things that are like, dude, I just want to start really deeply learning about functional health and living the better lifestyle and being able to share content. And I'm just kind of a nerd about this stuff, whatever it is, great. You can come into that university as well. So that's coming out. So, people can just stay tuned with my social media and kind of get the insight on that content as well.
Amazing. I'll make sure to link that everywhere as well. I'll definitely be checking out your university too. We'll talk about this more. Yeah. To our listener, we'll be back, of course, next week. Make sure to follow Nick everywhere. I'll drop it in the description, and then once your podcast is up about what we talked about, I'll make sure to drop that one in there too. So once again, man, thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, brother. Thank you so much.